Tonight on Reporting Scotland, a warning to new parents over the dangers of falling asleep with their babies. It's emerged that more than a quarter of infant deaths investigated in Scotland last year involved co-sleeping. One mother whose baby died after they both fell asleep shares her story.
I lost part of me and you physically feel the pain of losing that part of you. I will grieve forever. I think it's important to say her name.
Also in tonight's programme, the First Minister's WhatsApp woes just won't go away, with calls for Jason Leach to stand down over his COVID inquiry evidence as messages between him and Humza Yousaf, joking about winging it during the pandemic, are released.
Coming up in the sport, there's been a new midfield signing for Rangers and a new contract for a Celtic defender. We'll bring you all the details. And the Scottish entrepreneurs hoping to clean up in the trainer-mad sneakerhead market. Hello, I'm Sally Magnuson. Welcome to Friday's programme. Parents and carers are being urged to be careful about falling asleep with a baby after the release of new infant death figures. Of the 74 babies who died under 18 months that were investigated last year, more than a quarter involved what's called co-sleeping. It's the first time such figures have been published, and the Crown Office say they're of serious public concern. Rebecca Curran has this exclusive report.
She smiled the night before she passed away, her first and last smile.
A treasured memory for Dawn, whose daughter Fern was just 7 weeks old when she died in 2014. Dawn had been feeding her when they both fell asleep on the couch.
When I woke up, I realised that she wasn't breathing. Our dad started CPR straight away, but of course it was too late.
Sadly, Dawn's experience isn't unique. For the first time, the number of babies who died while co-sleeping with parents in Scotland has been tracked. 74 sudden and unexpected deaths under the age of 18 months were investigated last year. 19 of the infants died while co-sleeping, and of those, 12 deaths involved alcohol or drugs. It's prompted the Crown Office to issue a message to parents and carers.
Parents get tired, parents get desperate to have sleep, and therefore they will find themselves in a co-sleeping situation. But it's important to have thought ahead as to what are the risk factors and what I must do to do all I can to reduce the risk involved in co-sleeping.
The safest place for a baby is a clear, flat, separate sleep space.
If parents do want to co-sleep, advice is available on how to do it as safely as possible. Official guidance is for them to sleep on their back in a clear, safe space.
So that should be a flat, firm surface, such as a cot, a Moses basket, a crib in the parent's room, and that space should be clear. So no loose bedding, no toys, no bumpers, and in the absence of any other risk factors, that is still the absolute safest place for baby.
There were no alcohol or drugs involved in Fern's death, and tests later revealed she'd stopped breathing several times during her life, so co-sleeping may not have been to blame. But Dawn still wants to warn parents about the risks to prevent another family going through what she has.
I lost part of me and you physically feel the pain of losing that part of you. I will grieve forever. I think it's important to say her name. Remember that she was here and she's part of me and part of us.
Dawn Fernand ending that report from Rebecca Curran. And if you've been affected by any of the issues raised in that piece, you can access advice and support services through BBC Action Line online or by calling 08000 158 707. The former Conservative peer Michelle Mone and her husband Doug Barrowman have had assets frozen under a court order obtained by the Crown Prosecution Service in England. The Financial Times reported that restrictions had been placed over £75 million worth of assets, including several properties in Glasgow. PPE Medro, a company led by Mr Barrowman, is under investigation by authorities. It was awarded contracts worth more than £200 million to supply PPE to the NHS through a so-called VIP lane. The couple say they will prove their innocence. The Scottish Conservatives have called on the National Clinical Director, Jason Leach, to quit his post after a WhatsApp message exchange with the First Minister shows him making derogatory remarks and being critical of Labour and Conservative MSPs. Labour have already called for him to be sacked. In messages released to the UK COVID inquiry, the First Minister also jokes with Professor Leach that he's winging it in the public health response to the pandemic. Our political correspondent, Andrew Kerr, has more.
The First Minister was up before the UK COVID inquiry yesterday. WhatsApp messages between him and the National Clinical Director were shown. Humza Yousaf was critical of a former Labour MSP. Another tranche of messages has been released. Jason Leach, who appeared at the inquiry earlier in the week, is critical of Labour and Conservative MSPs after he briefed them in 2021. On the Conservative MSP Edward Mountain, he said he was rude and harumphing like a child. On the Scottish Labour MSP Daniel Johnson, he said he was a smart. And on the Labour MSP Mercedes Villalba, he called her New Girl Mercedes. The Conservatives say he should now quit.
Jason Leach is meant to be an impartial public health advisor, not some pal or patsy of the SNP and Humza Yousaf. The tone and content of the messages that we've seen is entirely inappropriate, and that's why, having crossed the line, Jason Leach should either resign or he should be sacked.
Labour have already said he should be sacked in the row over the release of WhatsApps, and their leader was critical of the comments made.
Someone asking hard questions, it's his job to answer those hard questions, and for him to get personal in such a way, I think, is really unacceptable. But again, I think that's the culture that's created from the top. I think clearly there is a rotten culture at the top that permeates then to senior ministers and senior officials.
At the time of an ongoing debate in 2021 about whether the Euros fan zone should go ahead, there was this exchange between the two men. On his public health response to the pandemic, Humza Yousaf said, "I am winging it and will get found out sooner rather than later." Jason Leach said, "Me too, that doesn't change." Of course, this was a private joke which has now been shared publicly at a time when politicians across the world were struggling to contain the virus. The Scottish Government said it would be inappropriate to comment on the detail of evidence being considered by the UK COVID inquiry while hearings are ongoing. Yesterday, the First Minister said there were examples of Jason Leach's style of overspeaking. More revelations will no doubt be forthcoming as the inquiry continues next week. Andrew Kerr, reporting Scotland.
Some of the day's other stories now. A 48-year-old man has been reported to the Procurator Fiscal after two men were attacked by a dog in Hamilton on Tuesday. One of the men was seriously injured but is now out of hospital. The dog, which police say was dangerously out of control, was shot dead by armed officers. Police say it hasn't been possible to establish the breed. A French Holocaust denier who spent 2 years on the run in Scotland has lost his legal battle against extradition. Vincent Renoir was arrested in Anstruther in November 2022. The 54-year-old is wanted by the authorities in France, where he's accused of inciting hatred and denying that the Holocaust happened. A whale has died after washing up on a beach in Fife. The 30-foot-long mammal, believed to be a fin whale, was reportedly first spotted on Couros Beach yesterday morning. Two northern bottlenose whales beached on the same shoreline last July. A jury has heard that the man accused of murdering Emma Caldwell was said to have taken another sex worker to the same remote woods where her body was found 18 years ago. The woman told police that Ian Packer drove her to a place 41 miles south of Glasgow. Emma was discovered there a month after she went missing in 2005. Our Home Affairs correspondent David Cowan reports.
In the 18 years since Emma Caldwell's face was displayed on posters around Glasgow and even beamed onto the side of a tower block, many of the sex workers interviewed by the police have died. Their statements are being read to the jury. One woman told them she had a regular client called Peter who would pick her up in the city's red light district and take her down the motorway towards London to an area with woods and fields. She identified Peter as Ian Packer, the man now accused of murdering Emma. Retired Detective Stuart Hall said that in February 2006, the police asked the woman to show them where he had taken her. She directed them down the M74, then on country roads to Limefield Woods in South Lanarkshire, 41 miles from Glasgow. Stuart Hall told the jury that the woman had seemed terrified when they got there. The prosecutor, Richard Goddard Casey, said to him, "You would know from your involvement in the inquiry that this was precisely the same place where the body of Emma Caldwell, another sex worker from Glasgow, was found." Mr. Hall agreed it was. In her statement, the woman told the police,
"I would describe him as a Jekyll and Hyde because of the way he behaved like a spoiled child who gets upset if he didn't get his way. I was petrified, out in the middle of nowhere, nearly stripped with that nutter."
She said that on the third occasion they went to the woods, he had behaved like a gentleman. In the statement, she said,
"I stopped going to the same place with Peter after Emma died. I'm 100% sure that's the place Peter took me for sex."
The defence pointed out that in October 2005, the woman had told the police she wouldn't be able to show them where it was, but 4 months later, she was able to take them to the exact spot where Emma Caldwell's body had been found. Stuart Hall, the former detective, agreed she had provided a lot of detail. She was, he said, very good. The words of two other women were read to the jury. One thought Ian Packer had been stalking Emma Caldwell and was obsessed with her. Another said that 2 weeks before she went missing, Emma had been talking about going into detox. But on the 4th of April, she went to work at Glasgow Green and never came back. David Cowan reporting Scotland, Glasgow.
The Governor of a Scottish prison is calling for the creation of secure care homes to deal with the spiralling social care costs of ageing prisoners. The price of providing end-of-life treatment, dementia care and other services has tripled in 4 years. Fiona Stalker has more.
With a rapidly ageing prison population, sites like these are becoming commonplace. Many of the inmates here have health and mobility issues, which require wheelchairs or hospital-type beds, but all behind bars. There are around 8,000 prisoners in Scotland at any one time.
It's really challenging because it takes a kind of...
Around 700 of them are now aged over 60.
We have people in general serving longer sentences for very serious crimes, but we also have less people released at earlier stages than we perhaps saw 10 years ago. We've got more people involved in serious organised crime who are in prison settings in Scotland right now, and on top of that we also have historical sexual offences where people may have been convicted later in life.
That's leading to more prisoners needing social care, help with washing, dressing or feeding. Others need physiotherapy after operations.
If I didn't have that care, I would probably still be in hospital. So needed that sort of thing to help me get back on my feet again.
I can get out and about more, I can go for showers myself, I can get to walk about, go to exercise without any aid of a wheelchair.
There are only 65 accessible cells like this one in the whole of Scotland. There are always waiting lists.
We need to think about something like a secure care home. I think that's probably the best way to describe this. We have people who have needs that are wider than probably we can manage in a prison regime. We've got people in prison now who have early onset dementia or neurological disorders which are extremely challenging.
Prison reform group the Howard League agrees. It says there are significant numbers of prisoners requiring 24-hour-a-day social care, and that could be in a less secure environment.
The Scottish Government told us that they're investing an extra 10% in the prison service over the next year. And they told us that they're considering arrangements around social care as part of plans for a national care service. Fiona Stalker reporting Scotland.
Tonight's main news again. It's revealed a quarter of baby deaths investigated in Scotland last year involved co-sleeping.
Coming up in the sport, there's been a new midfield signing for Rangers and a new contract for a Celtic defender. We'll bring you all the details.
The UK has halted trade talks with Canada after discussions broke down over a row about cheese and beef. Talks to broker a free trade agreement had been taking place since Brexit. There was dismay among some of Scotland's food and drink producers at the news, but it was welcomed by the country's farming union, as Louise Hosey reports.
Ian is a cheesemaker in Aberdeenshire. For years, he's been trying to sell his products to the lucrative Canadian market. But after nearly 2 years, trade talks between the UK and Canada have ground to a halt. It involves a row over taxes of up to 245% on British cheese.
The trade barriers that they're now putting up is really going to just block everything in every conversation we have been having. There has to be a resolution. It's just too big a market for us to walk away from.
While the suspension of talks has been met with dismay by cheesemakers, among farming leaders today, there's a sense of relief. Canada has been pushing for the UK to relax a ban on hormone-treated beef, something farmers here say would effectively shut them out of the market.
It's a day of reckoning. There's a bit of reality creeping into things here, with impact and potential impacts for domestic producers going forward. So we welcome the fact that UK government's going to stand the line here and say no.
There are concerns about the impact on other Scottish products. Canada is a major market for Scotch whisky. One shop owner in Calgary says a large part of his business depends on it.
It represents about 60% or 70% of our sales. 60% of that at least is Scotch whisky. So if the trade talks don't get resolved soon, and let's say there's high tariffs placed on it, then that has the potential to really decrease demand further at a time when we're already seeing it start to soften a little bit.
Scotland's Food and Drink Federation says the current stalemate means it risks losing important partnerships already established between the two countries. A spokeswoman for Canada's Trade Minister said it was disappointed the talks had stopped, adding an unwillingness to reach a mutual agreement and market access barriers had stalled negotiations. The UK government says it only negotiates deals that deliver for British people and is open to restarting talks in the future. Louise Hosey, reporting Scotland.
Now let's see what the sport is up to, and I just wonder if it might be transfer news.
Oh yes, as it gets towards that deadline, Sally, the chat always ramps up. Thanks very much. Yes, hello there. Rangers boss Philippe Clement believes they've signed one of the biggest prospects in Scandinavia after midfielder Mohamed Diomande agreed an initial loan deal from Nordsjælland. The manager says there were a lot of teams interested in buying the Ivory Coast under-23 cap, who the Ibrox club will sign on a 4-year deal at the end of the season. And he hopes this is the beginning of a new transfer model for Rangers.
We don't have an investor who just puts every year crazy money into the club every time. We are not a club like that, so you need to build also a model to gain value out of the players that you bring in or the players that come out of your academy, and to do the intelligent moves at the right time. And that needs to be the model for the next couple of years, and not getting players get out of contract, for example. We talked about that in the past.
Celtic have been boosted by centre-back Cameron Carter-Vickers signing a new 5.5-year contract at the club. The 26-year-old USA international is in contention to feature against Ross County tomorrow after missing the last 3 games because of a hamstring injury picked up on Boxing Day against Dundee. St Mirren have also been busy in the market, with manager Stephen Robinson welcoming 2 new signings in the last 2 days, including his latest addition, defender Jayden Brown. The Buddies host Rangers in an early kick-off tomorrow, looking to return to winning ways in the top flight, and Robinson says his new recruit adds balance to his squad.
He's played championship football, he's got a really good pedigree. As I said, we don't have another player in the building if Scott Tanser got injured. And it's important to have competition. So he's not coming to make numbers up, he's coming to be competitive, keep pushing Scott on, who's arguably been my player of the season so far. But also it would be a crisis if we got an injury with Terry Small being called back.
To rugby now, and Aaron Reid says it was a no-brainer to commit to Scotland after the former England under-20 player was called up to the squad for the Six Nations. Gregor Townsend had been monitoring the Sale Sharks winger for some time before asking him to join up, and Reid, who qualifies through his Scottish dad, says he didn't need much convincing.
Like every boy, when they're younger, wants to play international rugby, and my whole family, like my dad's born in Edinburgh, my grand's from Coldstream, like my whole family, like my dad's side are all Scottish, even my missus is Scottish, everyone around me is pretty much Scottish, so for me it wasn't that big of a decision. I always wanted to play for Scotland. I played England 18s and 20s obviously because I was growing up around that area, so for me it was a pretty simple decision to make, to be fair.
And Sally, that is a sport from me tonight.
Thanks very much, Lewis. And I'm looking at your trainers here. I don't know whether you're a sneakerhead or not, but watch this, because the trainer shoe market is worth billions of pounds globally, and with more and more people eager to keep in fashion, buying, selling and cleaning trainers has become big business. We've been hearing from two entrepreneurs in Glasgow who are making their mark in the lucrative world of the sneakerheads.
Sometimes we get surprised in how bad people's shoes can actually be. Like, we think to ourselves, how have you still been wearing them when they're in that condition? My name's Chris Ward and I'm the owner of Box Fresh Glasgow. We offer a professional sneaker cleaning service. Everything is done by hand, so we use brushes, cloths. We've got a special solution that we use for cleaning, and we also do a lot of paint work as well. So if your leather needs repainted or your midsoles need painted, it's a strangely therapeutic job. We like to come in, put some good music on, and then we'll work away. So when you pick up a shoe, if it's in really bad condition and you get it into excellent condition, it is a really satisfying part of the job. If Transmit's on and it's been raining in the build up to that, or it's raining at Transmit, we know that we're going to get loads and loads of orders in that are going to be kind of caked in mud, and it's going to be hard for us to get these shoes back into good condition. When we think about the throwaway culture, I think that's probably becoming a thing of the past. People are tending more to hold on to things if they're buying an expensive jacket or they're buying an expensive pair of trainers. I would say that it's just as popular now as taking your clothes to the dry cleaners. People are spending a lot of money on their shoes and they want to make sure that they're maintained and they look good. The shoe culture at the moment is absolutely massive. Trainers, obviously, especially. I think probably social media's got a lot to play in that as well. People want to have the latest trendy trainers. They want to post them on social media. But then there's obviously the reselling as well. So people buy trainers, they'll sell them on, and then that gives them money to buy new pairs.
These are £1,500, they're kind of really hard to get. These are all around the kind of 1,000 mark. We've got quite a lot of these in stock. Hi, I'm Taylor McNeely, I'm 21 years old and I'm the owner of Empire Glasgow. So I started Empire in 2019 at 17 years old, and I've kind of grown it myself to what it's become today, 2 stores and a huge stock of all the exclusive sneakers. I was doing an apprenticeship in aeronautical engineering, and at the same time I was selling shoes on the side. I was buying them online and I was selling them through like eBay and Depop. During COVID, the lockdown, I obviously had time off work and I just used that to focus on selling shoes. The Instagram page kind of blew up and we got a lot more followers. So coming out the back of lockdown, I decided to go for it and open a shop. I think there's definitely a huge demand for exclusive sneakers, especially in Glasgow. It comes from almost the influence of the shoes being hard to get, and then you see people wearing them online and stuff, and it just kind of drives the demand for them. Because they're tough to get, it makes people want them more. I don't really see the age as an issue at all. The fact I'm younger just means I've got one step ahead of everyone, I suppose.
And here's Judith now with the weather.
Thank you, Sally. A very good evening to you. Well, this was the situation up in Caithness today. Now, if you cast your mind back just over a week, there was snow all over the place. So what a difference a week makes, and things are set to turn milder as we head through the weekend. Let's take a look at the pressure chart. We're stuck between two systems. It's funneling some very strong winds across Scotland and also some rain for the northwest at times as well. But it will bring much milder conditions as we head through the course of the weekend. As far as tonight's concerned, we'll continue to see blustery showers for western and northern parts. Maybe the odd one further east and south, but generally it's drier and clearer here. Gales over the far north and north northwest, and they'll ramp up a wee bit as we head through to tomorrow morning, but it will be pretty brisk winds everywhere. Temperature-wise, staying above freezing, so no frost tonight to speak of. Into tomorrow, a largely dry start for the south and for the east, but further blustery showers across northern Scotland, and they'll merge at times into longer spells of rain. Come the afternoon, I think we should see something drier coming into Shetland, some sunshine for the northern side of the Isles. The winds ease a notch, but they'll still be pretty strong. Some cloudy skies for Orkney and Caithness. Eastern Scotland seeing the lion's share of the sunshine with 10 Celsius here. Across the west, we'll start to see cloud building up. Again, it's mild, but it will be windy up that west coast. Those winds strong right up the west coast, and outbreaks of rain gathering across the northwest. So if you're thinking of heading to the hills tomorrow, challenging conditions across all ranges with severe gales, storm force winds at times, and outbreaks of showery rain in the north with sleet over the tops as well. And with low temperatures, there will be a significant wind chill. So a few things to bear in mind. It's driest towards southern and eastern ranges. If you're thinking of heading out, we will have those very windy conditions, severe wind chill as well, and extensive hill fog for western and northern ranges, hampering visibility. Showers will start to gather across western and northern parts as we head into tomorrow evening, as will cloud. The winds will back into the south, introducing a lot of cloud across Scotland as we head through Saturday night into Sunday, and some drizzly rain as well. Quite murky conditions, especially for the west coast. So a cloudy start to Sunday, quite damp and drizzly in places, and quite misty and murky across western coastal areas. Some rain pushing into the west as we head through the day. We should see some sunshine through across northern and eastern parts, but very mild indeed. We could see 14 Celsius along the Murray coast. That's your forecast.
Thanks very much indeed, Judith. We've got time for a quick look at the main news again. A quarter of baby deaths investigated here last year involved co-sleeping. BBC Scotland has learned it's the first time figures have been released concerning co-sleeping deaths in Scotland. And the Crown Office say the numbers are of serious public concern. The Scottish Conservatives have called on the National Clinical Director Jason Leach to quit his post after a WhatsApp message exchange with the First Minister show him making derogatory remarks and being critical of Labour and Conservative MSPs. Labour have already called for him to be sacked. Anne McAlpine will be here with your late news at around 10:30 tonight. But until then, from everyone in the team, do enjoy your evening. Bye-bye.